Good morning, subscribers. Welcome to episode 13 of Complex Humans. It's Oliver Damian here in Sydney, where it's Friday, 6:32 a.m. And our guest for today is Lola Michels. And she's from the past. It's still Thursday where she's from, in London. And it's 10:30 in the evening, right, Lola?
Yeah, 9:30. But
Ah,
yes,
9:30,
I,
yeah.
I I do live in the past.
That's
Um, Props on the pronunciation of my last name, by the way. It was really Dutch. I can tell you spent some time in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved your country. It's like because I'm a design student, and to me, the whole country is very well designed. I love it. It felt really human to me. It's amazing.
That's great. Have you been to the Dutch's Design Academy by any
No,
chance?
no. Next
No,
time.
it's in Eindhoven. You would love it. It's near where I grew up. It's
Oh,
one of the
awesome.
largest design academies in the world. Hmm.
Yeah, there was an design week or something, but I was busy doing something else that weekend. But I feel I'll be back. I feel I'll be back there because I loved it so much.
Hmm.
What would you like to
Yeah,
talk about today or tonight, depending on which perspective?
I don't mind. I'll happily go for today with your perspective since you're hosting.
Ha! So what's on your mind at the moment?
What's on my mind?
Hmm.
I've had lots of big changes recently.
Wow.
Over the winter, I felt that I was getting really stuck, and I was getting a little bit unhappy with things and being in London. And what you just said about going back to the Netherlands is actually exactly what I'm going to do as well. So
Wow.
just to give a bit of context, I have recently had my 3-year anniversary of living in London,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been really challenging and really amazing at the same time. Like so many things I learned about myself here. Like I really feel that I got to know myself better here for whom I am. Like irrespective of like people's expectations of what you should be like or what your life should
Yeah.
look like, etc. Um, yeah, and 3 years ago I moved here on my own, and I didn't know anyone in the city, and I knew just a few people in the country who lived quite far away. And yeah, and basically at the time it was my life goal to be able to make a home for myself anywhere in the world.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'd done it like once before when I moved to Spain, and I didn't know anyone there. And then I did again when I moved to London, and it took a while. It took about like 2 years to properly feel like I was like properly at home. But I've done it, and yeah, I'm really grateful for that and for like all the humans that I've met and all the community that I've eventually established.
Amazing.
Um, yeah, because you like we lived in London together. I mean, like we both lived in London at one point,
Yeah.
and then
And
you went to Australia
yeah.
and other places.
Yeah. And what is it that you get out of this? Like for me personally, I love living in different cities because it really opens up my mind, and it it shows me parts of me that I wouldn't have seen had I stayed where I am. I'm sure I could still see those parts if I stayed in one place, but there's just something about being drawn by the. It's funny. I'm reading this book by it's here. It's Alain de Botton, The Art of Travel, and he talks
Yeah.
about why we travel. Like, and he talks about one of the reasons we travel is we're looking for something that's not in the place where we live.
Mm.
And I do agree with that because like Sydney is a beautiful city, but it doesn't have the scale of London. You know, the randomness of London, like the two of us meeting, and it's just like I could
Mm.
stand in a pub or in a gallery in London, and something interesting will happen. It's Miss
Yeah.
Dancing there. It's amazing.
Yeah,
What's your experience?
it's like I think both of the times where I've moved country weren't like neither of them was actually my choice. It was like sort of like first time I moved to Spain as part of my studies to study there, and when I moved to London, it was because of my final internship. I
Mm-hmm.
had to do an internship. Had to do an internship abroad, and I didn't actually want to leave where I was at that point, but I had to in order to complete my studies, and I basically just had, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel where I needed to be in a role, so I just let the universe decide, and I applied for internships in places ranging from basically any place where I knew the local language, and at that time I was pretty fluent in Spanish and French and English, so that makes for quite a lot of countries.
Nice.
And I applied in like Mexico, Nicaragua, and Spain, and France, and London. And then I got accepted first in London. I was like, okay, London it is.
Ah,
So I actually just kind of ended up here like a lost little puppy. And then I decided to stay because I got a job offer and I wanted to take it. And one of the things what you said about traveling, like for me, it hasn't really maybe perhaps consciously been about looking for something that you cannot find at home, but I did find things that I cannot find at home. So,
mhm.
and I think
Yeah,
like every single person needs a bit of perspective. Um, like in order to see your surroundings and to see the characteristics of your surroundings as they are, you need to take yourself out of your surroundings
yeah,
and like physically somewhere else so you can literally gain perspective and experience how another culture is different from your own culture, and by doing so also getting to know your own culture better and like seeing the ways in which you are programmed and like your cultural programming and your social programming and all that. And I think that's really valuable about going places.
yeah. Like, so there's that, and yeah, the title of this series is Complex Humans, but it's not really, yeah, because I also had experience. I After I left London, when I lived there in not the time when we met, but before that, I lived there as well. And then
Mm.
I was hesitant to go back to Sydney because I love London so much that I accepted the job. This is like funny. All my friends laugh at this. So I accepted the job at the British Virgin Islands because if I
Oh
can't
wow,
live in London, I'm gonna live in this paradise, British territory in the Caribbean, and I
the
did. And
complete opposite.
I accepted it. I haven't been there. I didn't know. Like I was interviewed like this over the phone or over the video. No,
Yeah.
actually, it was over the phone. So I just went, and the moment I landed, I thought, "Oh fuck, this is wrong." So I lasted 3 days and I resigned. That was the shortest job I've ever had.
Wow.
And then that's when I realized I'm a city person. I love the messiness, the complexity of cities. Yeah.
Mm.
So on that note, like I just wanna, I'm curious, what motivated you to sort of end this cycle in London and go back to the Netherlands? What's prompted the move?
Yeah, it's a few things. I've always considered myself a city person as well, but I think over the past 3 years, like especially in a fairly big metropole like London, um, I just what has been bothering me is um, that I've noticed that London doesn't seem to care that much about one's well-being.
Okay.
Um, One of the more concrete things that my health has been suffering from is the air pollution, which has been really bad this year. I don't know whether you saw it, like
Yeah, so I saw some
especially
methane index. Yeah.
yeah, especially in February and such when it was cold. There was a lot of like smog that basically was pressing down because of the air pressure and then the fog and such. It was just basically just hanging over the city. And at one point, the mayor had to launch a warning for people to not go outside. You know, they was like, if you can stay inside today, then please do, because
That's sad.
basically the air is so toxic. And like I've I've always been a person with quite a good immune system.
Mm,
But over the past, I recently had some kind of miraculous recovery, like an absolute miracle. But like the 5 months before that, I've just been nonstop ill. Like I've been coughing. I've had a chest infection. I've had like the worst headache that I've ever had in my life, and I think it's partly the sort of general vibe of stress of the city. Just
mm,
the sort of like life here seems to be about like working really hard
mm,
and being ambitious, and that's exactly what I wanted to do after my studies, and that's
mhm,
exactly what I've tried to do over the past 3 years. But now I realize that, especially over the winter, I just realized that it's just not good for my health nor for my mental health to continue to be in a place that's not good for my well-being. And then of course there's also like the general direction of politics here. I feel that the government is becoming more and more sort of like colonial again, and
mm,
to be fair, like sometimes I feel like rather fascist, like, and the things that have when Brexit happened. So I'm a European citizen, and like Brexit happened, and no one thought it would, because in London, most of the people did not vote to leave the European Union.
yeah,
But when Brexit happened, and then as a result of that, like I always feel fairly safe. I always feel very safe because I'm a white woman. I'm well educated. I have a job that pays well. I'm like amongst the most privileged people in the scale. But following Brexit, and also obviously other things that have been happening in like the States, for example, just the surge of racism and of aggression towards um, people with different religions and different skin colors and such has just been really worrying me. And I
mm,
don't want to be a person who's like, actually, this place has too much air pollution. Like the environment here is bad, and people don't treat each other nicely in this country, or like politics doesn't go the way I want to. So I'm just gonna like walk away from it. Like I don't want to walk away from problems, because I think it's our own responsibility to do what we can to make things better, and not just like make a mess and leave.
mm,
Um, but at the same time, I think I need to be mindful of my own health and my own mental health. And there's also just like a limited influence I can have as a European citizen who doesn't have the right to vote in national elections, at least.
mm.
So I've been trying to do what I can on all kinds of different fronts. Like I downloaded an app on my phone, which is basically this app that allows me to take pictures of like rubbish I see on my commute. I cycle along the canal to work every day, and there's just so much rubbish like floating in the canal and like lying on the pathway and hanging in the bushes, and it just always really bothers me. So I've now committed to being like the biggest pain in the ass of my local MP. Basically, I'm like stalking them every day, being like, this is rubbish and it's polluting like your canals, and like the birds are swimming in it, and you need to make sure that it goes away. I've written a letter to my local MP, because that's something that I can do,
Yeah,
about the air pollution. And then on the social front, I've been trying to contribute on the social front by starting this series of talks, which
yeah,
called "The Uncomfortable Truth,"
yeah. It's
which is
amazing.
thank you.
I was,
What
I
did you
wish I was
hear?
there so I could attend the meetups live. And yeah, so say more so that our subscribers can know more about your group. It's an amazing group.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the idea of this project, it's a not-for-profit project, and it came from Actually, it was a post of a friend of mine called Corin Ahmad Pfeiffer. He's a investigative journalist, and he writes a lot about racial issues, and he writes a lot um, about issues to do with class and such. And basically, at one point, he shares a lot of really interesting content on lots of different, really important topics. And at one point, I just had this revelation, basically this when you kind of already know something, but then someone just spells it out for you, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Boom.
um, exactly, like with the little light bulb. Um, he published something saying that he's actually really fed up of spending time with white people who do not do any effort to listen or like learn about the experiences of people of color.
Mm.
And then that post got a lot of comments from people being like, oh yeah, I'm really fed up with it as well, I really understand. um and then I was reading this and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And I asked him whether he would be okay with me placing a comment um that would basically refer to some sources that have helped me as a very privileged white person to understand like POC issues better from the voices of people of color
Mm.
themselves. And he was like, yeah, that seems like a useful thing to do. So I did, and I wrote this post and I linked to a bunch of places like videos and articles and such, and sort of maybe mentioned something about how they'd been eye-opening to me.
Mm.
Um, and then that got a lot of likes from people. And then suddenly I was like, yeah, um, I think there is not just when it comes to like the POC community and Black community or Brown community, but also when it comes to other groups when it comes to other minority groups, people have a desire to be heard, and people have a desire for their perspectives and their stories to be more considered and to be more to be better understood, perhaps.
Mm.
And then I think at the same time, there is also a desire amongst certain humans to understand the situations and the struggles and the lived experiences and perspectives of another,
Yeah.
and of communities that they're not part of, and like individuals that who they are not.
Yeah.
Um, and I think this sharing of stories and like sharing of like daily experiences that as a listener you might never have to deal with yourself, I think can be really valuable. At least like for me, it's been really valuable. Like coming from the Netherlands, which is an extremely well, it's kind of like there's a lot of segregation going on in the Netherlands. When I grew up, it was all like white middle class people, and there wasn't a lot of diversity in my basic like in group in which I grew up.
Mm.
And when I moved to London, obviously London is like one of the things I really love about London is that it's like is the most diverse place that I've seen so far.
Yeah.
When it comes to everything.
Yeah.
And when I arrived here, I met a lot of people from really different walks of lives who shared with me their background stories and like the things that they struggle with and the microaggressions that they get to deal with on a daily basis that I was just completely unaware of, and
Yeah.
just like the things that I learned would just like smack me in the face, like um there was this video of Queen Latifah. I don't
Yeah.
know whether you're familiar with her.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Which
actress,
was
right? The American actress. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, she's a Black American actress. And she made a spoken word video, which was called Pretty for a Dark Skin. And I saw this on Facebook, and I saw like lots of like dark people in my network sharing this video. And I watched it, and I was like, that's I just like I was just speechless. I was like, why would anyone say that? Why would you say to a woman that she's pretty for dark skin? It's just like such an incredible like unnecessary and like denigrating thing to say. And I just like I went to some of my friends of color and I was like, you know, what's this about? And they said, oh yeah, they said, yeah, I've heard that like quite a few times in my life. When I
Mm,
would be like in certain circles where people would say these kind of things, and
mm,
um, for me that was really eye opening because I just never even heard that phrase before. So this is
yeah,
one example of how, you know, people sharing their uncomfortable truths, as in like people sharing um, things they get to deal with that are painful or that are uncomfortable or that are scary,
mm,
can a make us more considerate of what we might be. It might make us more aware of the ways in which we are not considerate to our fellow humans who we live amongst every day. It
yeah,
might make it easier for us to kind of um, connect with different people
yeah,
because we realize that they are also human. I mean, I think in the United States, I think it's quite extreme
yeah,
segregation, and I sometimes feel that people just are so alienated from each other, and there are quite a lot of spaces where one can be amongst one's own, whatever that means.
yeah,
There's quite a lot of communities where people can be with their own, whatever that means to them, you know, whether it's like people who share the same religion or whether it is people who like share the same like home country or like the same culture in whatever way. But there are not a lot of places where people actively go to not be, to kind of mingle and to kind of like connect with people from different walks of lives and to learn to like to listen to their stories and to learn from their stories and just like connect, like step out of their comfort zones,
yeah. It's like
if that makes sense.
yeah, and then that's what I like about London is that I think it has as a designer in terms of city design, I think it has a lot to do with public transport. In America, many cities are car cities, and when you're in the car, you're in your own bubble, really, and then you
Hmm.
can just drive to the places where you meet people like you, and you're like insulated from the rest of of humanity. Like I spent time in LA, and I'm one of the few people who took buses, and it's amazing. Like it's like a wealth of culture there. Just sitting on the bus and listening to these people talking, and even waiting for the bus because not many people take.
Yeah.
And I had like an interesting conversation with this homeless guy, but and we were smoking cigarettes in a bus stop, and it's just the stories he had. It's amazing, and like I don't normally talk to homeless people because I like everyone I have this weird blinkers on that if they're homeless don't talk to them. But there I was able
Mm.
to really feel someone on a human level. And
Yeah.
also like I'm part of your Facebook group, and one thing that I thought of myself as pretty you know out there and wide in my perspective, but even I missed there was a thread in your Facebook group about cultural misappropriation,
Yeah,
like
cultural appropriation. Yeah.
yeah, like this rave party just copying the rituals
Mm.
of tribes, and it didn't, like I've seen that a lot, and it didn't register to me as something that's not good. And then the discussion that came from your thread really made me consider it more, what's really going on, and it's more nuanced and more complex. Like in a way we want to celebrate the ritual, but at the same time we don't want to disrespect it. So there's like this play of play of cultures, like it's not black
Yeah.
and white. It's not black and white, but at the same time, I think the point of that is to be really sensitive, right? It is to be try to be in their shoes, right? Of someone you're talking in a ritual, or you know what I mean. I
Yeah.
think it's really for us to be. It's fine. I went to this play party in Sydney, and people were asking, so what's the rule? What's the rule in this play party? It's like a play sex party, and the guy said, I don't want to give you too many rules, but I have one rule, and it's be polite.
Mm.
And he explained polite in its most expansive way. Being polite means being considerate of the other person. So it's not like follow this one rule one ten. It's feel your body. What is it to respect this other person? How can I make a request, or how can I say no in a polite way? You know?
Yeah.
And I think we've lost a bit of that in the world.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I think also like in order to be, I don't like to use the word polite because for me it has such
Loaded,
like
loaded. Political
British
correctness. Yeah.
associations of
Yeah.
something else. But like um yeah, I think in order to be able to create a space, a community that is where different people, where as many people as possible can feel safe.
Yeah.
So if you want to create a safe space where people will feel comfortable no matter what their background, uh, or no matter what their story, you need to do an effort. You need to self-educate into into the different personal experiences that people might have, into the different like cultural backgrounds that people might have. Um, because if you're not aware of them, you cannot be. If you're not aware of them, you cannot be considerate of them. I think
Hmm.
it's like, so what the Uncomfortable Truth does is it's a series of talks, and
Hmm.
every month we have a different person or persons speak about a certain topic from their own perspective. Like, what's really important is that no one speaks for anyone else at the Uncomfortable Truth. People just speak from their own experiences. That's kind of the premises of what we're trying to do. And um, where was I going with this? I lost the line of my story. Um, what were we saying before?
Yeah. We were saying that yeah, it opened my mind to different perspectives, and also I'm just gonna
Oh,
check. Yeah, I'm gonna pull out the. I'm gonna so we can show people. Is it all right if I show
yeah,
the Facebook page?
yeah, sure, sure. I also just remembered what I was going to say, which is
Yeah,
that um, when you so that example that you brought up about this like rave in London that has been happening, where like basically there were a bunch of white people who were having a party that was themed Africa, and
yeah,
like they sort of like, well, it was just really well. They sort of dressed up in African gear, but also like really sometimes really offensive African as accessories and clothing and such. And it was just a very white dominated party that was kind of that had a theme that was Africa, but it was obviously not very culturally sensitive. People were just kind of like dressing up and acting in a manner that like of they were giving it their interpretation of what Africa is, like a exotic Africa or something. It wasn't a cultural exchange. It wasn't a thing where like African people would feel safe or welcomed because they would just be offended by the insensitivity towards their cultures.
yeah,
Cultures as in like, because Africa is a massive continent with lots of different countries and cultures. But one thing um, that I think also emerged from there is that it's not up to it's not up to me, for example, to decide what is and isn't offensive. If someone is offended by by something, for example, if the organizers of this party might be like, oh, but we were trying to do something really good, and we were trying to celebrate like Africa, the motherland, and they were basically saying, like, listen, we had good intentions, and because
Mhm.
we had good intentions, what we did was not wrong. But like one
Mhm.
lesson that I've had to learn the hard way is that it's actually not about your intentions, and the fact that you had good intentions does not make anything right. In order to understand, um, like someone needs to tell you when something is offensive, and they can decide to explain to you why something is offensive, and
Yeah,
basically with yeah, and
yeah, like
basically with yeah,
yeah, yeah, like
go on.
I had two things to say about that, and it's because actually, if someone says that to you, you should say thank you because it's good feedback. Like I was unaware of this, and I have one good story. I have a really dear friend there in London, and he's a really good friend. But even he, because this thing can be innocuous. So there was one time I was about. So I always catch up with him when I'm in London, and I was about to come back here, and then I said, Ollie, when are you going to the Far East? And I told him, man, it's no longer called the Far East. You no longer have the empire. It's now called
Exactly,
South.
Britain is no longer the center of the world.
It's called the Far East because it's far from you and it's in the east. But we call it Asia or Southeast Asia now. Thank you very much. But I still love you. But I just would like to correct you. It's no longer the Far East.
Yeah, Far East part of the empire.
It's so lovely.
Yeah, exactly. And like, and the awful thing is that we're just so like blind to these things most of
Uh,
the time when it comes to things that are outside of our cultural programming. Like in the Netherlands, there's this what's it called? It's a holiday. It's called Sinterklaas, which is basically our sort of
yeah,
version of
yeah.
Santa Claus. And like traditionally, Sinterklaas slash Santa Claus is like this man with like a white man with a white beard, and he's like some kind of saint, and he has all these black helpers. And what happens is that in December, on the 5th of December, lots of white people will paint themselves black, put
Yeah.
like afro wigs on their faces, and basically like be generally like silly and handing out presents. And but anyways, it's just the most ridiculous and like the most racist thing in the world, and it actually took me a while to figure that out. It was actually only when I lived in Spain and my like one of my American friends was like listening to someone explain them about this holiday, and he was just like he was like, are you kidding me, like is this actually for real? Like this is the most offensive thing that I've ever heard. And then I was like, yeah, it is actually, isn't it? But just because like as a Dutch person you're so kind of, yeah, you just like grew up with this holiday and it always came with like candy and presents, so like why would you ever sort of actually like think about it or step back and think about it? And yeah, so
Actually took a
that's
photo because they came in Delft when I was in Delft and Sinterklaas and
sort of piece.
Black Pete came.
Blackfish.
Yeah, and I took a photo with them. But it was explained to me that it's not meant to be racist because I think they're black because of the suit inside the when
Yeah,
you come to the chimney. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not.
but that's, we all
Yeah.
can kind of sense that that's bullshit.
I don't know. I'm just trying to understand what was that thing. But anyway.
I don't know where it came from, but it's anyways. Yeah. The
Yeah, but I,
United Nations the United Nations actually had like a committee to look into it. um,
wow. So
yeah.
yeah, but I think the point is it's not really to tell people how to think, but the point is just to be critical about everything, right? To really examine ourselves, our biases, and all that. And
Yeah.
I think it is. I don't know if it's Aristotle or one of the Greek philosophers who said that an unexamined life is not worth living. So I think the
Mm.
message we have is for us to examine our life. So we're about to run out of time, but let me just pull out the your Facebook page, and maybe you can talk about your upcoming event.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um, do you want to share your screen?
yeah. Let me just share it. And so, do you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So yeah, you could talk about the next event, and I'll scroll through.
Yeah. Have a scroll through it. Basically, our next event is actually coming up really soon. It's on the 21st of April. So I was hoping, if you have any people who are watching, if there are any people watching from London, please come along. Everyone is welcome. On the 21st of April, we have a talk by a person called Ruka Johnson, and she's a costume designer in the film and television industry. And basically, this talk is going to be her talking about, as you can see, like the lack of opportunities for women, people of color, and people from lower socio-economical backgrounds to enter the film and television industry. The effect of having a dominant voice in front of the camera and behind the camera,
Mm.
the lack of diversity on screen and that kind of thing. She also runs an amazing project. What is it? It's a directory called Our Stories on Screen,
Mm-hmm.
and basically it's a directory for crew and actors of color and queer, especially queer actors and crew of color, um, who basically can create an account for themselves on this directory so that they can gain more visibility. Because apparently what happens a lot in the film and television industry is that people are like, oh, we wanted to have a more diverse like cast or crew, but there's just no one out there, which is absolutely bullshit. So she's going to help these people realize that actually there's a lot of like queer and people of color out there who work in the industry and who are really talented and who, you know, deserve the jobs that are on offer.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion with things having happened like um, the BAFTAs, which is a British Film Awards. They have recently announced that they have like basically if movies are not diverse enough, they will not be eligible for a BAFTA award. And there's like
Okay.
different people like having different opinions about that. Like, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it just lip service? Is it actually going to make a change?
Yeah.
These kind of conversations. Um, with the Ghost in the Shell movie having recently been come out, where Scarlett Johansson plays a character that, according to many people, did not have to be white, and it is actually quite a Japanese movie. And for some reason, they decided to put a white woman in front of this, like as the face of this movie. And um, anyways, I think people are slowly becoming more aware of the lack of diversity in the media and how this is actually not very desirable and also just not that interesting, to be
Yeah.
fair, anymore.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I think this is a good one because media influences us a lot, whether we know it consciously or subconsciously, because it's what shapes culture. So if you make it more diverse, then the culture will be more diverse, and it will be the richer, right? Everyone will be the richer.
yeah,
So
hopefully. So that's
yeah,
that's what that talk
21st
and the
of
discussion.
April. So subscribers and viewers of this episode, if you're in London on the 21st of April, what time is it? To
It starts at 7:30 on a
Yep, at
it's
St. Luke's
at
Centre.
a
Right?
yeah, at St. Luke's Community Centre, which is near Old Street and Barbican.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
so any last messages before we close this episode?
Um. Well, I just wanted to say thank you for letting me talk. I always feel a bit self-conscious about talking a lot, but yeah. It's been really nice to catch up with you, and also thank you for letting me talk a bit about the uncomfortable truth. Like I've been talking a lot about a project now, but the entire project is about giving a voice to others, and I'm just organizing, and we have some really inspiring people who do talks for us. So if your listeners, if your followers want to join our Facebook group, it's called The Uncomfortable Truth Meetup and Podcast. And you'll see our upcoming talks being announced in there. We have two Muslim feminists who are coming to talk for us in May.
Hmm?
So they're going to shed an entirely new perspective on feminism from a much unheard perspective, let's say like this. Um, and we have someone who has a severe disability, like someone had a train accident and lost some legs, coming to talk about her relationship to her body and how it changed before and during and after her accident. And it's going to touch
Wow.
about accessibility issues in London and such. Um, so we have a really diverse set of talks that we've had and that are coming up. And I really hope that the people will come and join them and come and have their eyes opened
Yep.
in the coming few months.
Thank you.
Yes.
You certainly opened our minds. And yeah, folks, if you're in London, or even if you're not in London, search for her for the Uncomfortable Truth podcast and group, because even I'm not in London, but I benefit a lot from the discussion in the feed in the Facebook group. So thank you, people, for joining us in episode 13. And as before, if you find this episode useful, please like, comment, and share. It means a lot to us. And also, if you found this episode that from the internets and you're not yet subscribed, please go to the YouTube channel page and then click subscribe so that you can be informed when the next episode is available. And we have two guests coming. One is from Hamburg, Germany, and another one is from Stockholm. So we're really looking forward to that as well. And yeah, as Lola's saying, the more diverse the people we have, the better, the richer we are. So I'm trying to talk to people all over the world in this series of mine. Thank you, Lola, and
Excellent. Thank you.
I
I
hope to
really
see
look
you
forward to your
one
upcoming
day.
interviews. Okay. Take care. Speak
Bye.
soon. Bye.
Bye.